Good morning, folks. Hope everyone's doing well. It's been a long time since Rosa and I have made a vlog, and so today on this beautiful sunny day here in northeast Scotland we thought we'd make a bit of an update and give you guys a catch up of what we've been up to on our small farm here at Tappenough Farm. Obviously it's a very different world at the moment out there, crazy times that we're living in with the coronavirus pandemic. But really that hasn't changed life too much for Rosa and I and the rest of our family here on the farm. Rosa's just here. So yeah, stuff hasn't changed too much for us. Obviously what is happening globally is very frightening and worrying. We've got family all around the world. Rosa's parents that live in London. Obviously there's a lot more cases of the virus in London. My sister in Australia works within the hospital sector, so is possibly at times at risk, so it gives us a bit of a worry. On the whole, we're trying to see the positives that have coming from this, and obviously within our sector of ecological farming and design and environmentalism, there's a lot of positive talk coming out of what could happen after the virus.
I think there's a lot of positive changes that can come from any negative situation, really, because you learn these things can shed light on things that aren't so functional or are a bit too fragile or not based on the right foundations. And I think some people are definitely seeing or thinking how we could almost rebuild certain systems with a little bit more of society and the climate and these things. It's
understanding
hard.
Of nature.
Yeah.
We've noticed a huge demand in local food rise since the outbreak of the virus. We just hope that when the virus does disappear, that need and interest for locally produced and grown food is still there.
We try and stay optimistic.
Yeah. But anyway, didn't mean to start making a vlog all about the coronavirus. We have obviously got a lot of work to be getting on with. We've got the other 8 acres of smallholding or homestead to look after too, and it's quite a challenge that we're enjoying, seeing what it's like to kind of run the place here, just the two of us, and of course my mum and her partner Andy who help. They're actively working as our volunteers, so that's great. We don't leave the farm that much anyway, so self-isolation has been quite easy for us, and we're just really enjoying the fact that this permaculture farm has been designed to be as abundant and supportive as possible in times of crisis. So it's a great test. We can see where that is really working within the farm, and we can definitely see some areas of the farm that we need to work on to make them more resilient for possible future scenarios where food is scarce or oil is scarce.
Yeah, I mean we're very lucky where we are, but when we realised we weren't going to go to the shop, ironically we'd actually been relying on the shop more than usual because we had sold every last vegetable we had on the farm because of a difficult season last year. We really wanted to get maximum vegetables to our members, so we had nothing, and we were like, it'll be okay because we'll go to the shop, we can do that, you know. So we were letting ourselves go to the shop more. But then when this happened, we didn't actually have much growing at the time. You know, it was kind of early spring. I think it really showed us why we need to value our own food as well as growing for our business. And we do, but I think sometimes maybe we don't quite take it seriously, you know, as much as maybe we could.
So we've had a lot of lovely comments from some of our viewers asking when we're gonna start doing regular vlogs again. Right now I feel like maybe we're going to bring out a vlog every month or so. We've had inquiries asking if we could make tutorial vlogs on the vegetables that we're growing or the techniques that we use or permaculture design, and they're all great ideas. We were wondering about maybe starting a Patreon. If you've got any more ideas of what we could do, then just let us know in the comments. I'm going to try and show you guys around the farm now. I'm here in the market garden, and a lot of the beds are still underneath the black silage sheets, but you know, we've got quite a slow start here in Scotland to things. We don't have a huge amount out in the garden yet. Most of our vegetables are still in the polytunnel, which is our nursery area. We have, what have we got? So yeah, so this plot here, for instance, I'll just start here because that's where I'm standing. Bless you! This plot's going to be a bit of a mixture of things this year. Last year was this is our Legume Rotation. I think we're going to have, this is going to be quite a colourful plot. We're going to have purple carrots, and we're going to have golden beetroot here. I think there's some chard going in this section, so a little bit of a mix. And then in the far distance, where it's still uncovered soil, we are going to be doing our tatties, our potatoes there. We're going to try a little bit of an experiment with the way we plant them this year, but more on that later. So this plot here, we basically had to start from scratch. We let it get a bit too weedy last year, and a lot of grass grew back there. We've got to remember that this whole small field I'm standing in was covered in grass and rosebay, willow herb and docks, so we're always still fighting with weed pressure. And unfortunately we didn't maybe tarp this plot enough last year, and the grass grew back quite badly. I got the BCS and rotary plough in here and basically reformed the beds. This used to be 2 plots of 15 metre or 50 foot beds, and we decided to take away the central pathway and make them into 5 beds of 100 feet or 30 metres. We formed the beds, we did a lot of raking, and then we added a whole bunch of our friend and neighbouring farmers' organic cow manure to bring some fertility into the soil. And then we've planted out our first crop. That's Brussels sprouts that we've planted out underneath the floating row cover there. So great to have something planted out. I'm going to get onto this bit here because this is very new, but not quite yet. We've got this hedgerow here, which I planted about 3 years ago. This is a mixture of crabapple trees and damsons, and then we've got some sea buckthorn and Rosa rugosa. So it's just going to be a nice thick hedge to buffer the wind that comes onto the vegetable plots over here. Anyway, they're just starting to come into leaf. The tree rows are looking a bit more alive than they have done over the last few months, coming out of their dormancy. So you can see the Aleagnus, or the autumn olive, is in leaf now. The mint is growing rampantly as the ground cover. I really do regret planting the mint in these forest garden tree rows because they're very close to the vegetable beds, and I've already had to dig out some sneaky little mint runners that have been creeping into the vegetable plots. Hey ho! This plot behind me here, this is our legume rotation this year. So underneath the floating row cover we've got 3 beds of broad beans, 2 rows per bed. That's about 90 metres of broad beans. And if we just make our way over to the other plot, the neighbouring plot, you can see a couple of beds prepared here. This is going to be carrots, which I should hopefully get around to sowing today. So this is our root rotation. We're going to have carrots and beets in there. Make my way over to the other side of the garden, which was the original market garden. These are some of the first plots that were built in 2015. So Rosa's just working down on a bed there, pulling up a pathway. So these beds have all been prepared and tarped again, and this is going to be salads in plot 1/2 of plot 1. Below the comfrey bed here is going to be salads, direct sown, and head lettuce transplants. And then up in this section of the plot, this is going to be our Legume rotation for this year. So we've already got our garlic planted in this section, and the rest will be for the onions and leeks. So we're down here in the southern part of the garden where we've got the chickens. Now, I'm just gonna take you over to where we've got the geese at the moment because they're doing a special job for us. So at the moment we've got the geese here just below the market garden, which is behind me there, and we've put the geese here for a special reason because they're very noisy still. The females are still laying eggs, so the males, the ganders, are pretty aggro still and protective. That's better. So we've put the geese on this small area of grass. We brought them in just day before yesterday, and we are getting them to eat down this grass for us because we're going to be removing that grass because we're going to be extending the market garden. And we're doing this, we wanted to extend the garden anyway this year, but funnily enough also with the COVID-19
got more of a market.
Yeah, you might be mistaken to believe that we're extending the garden because of that need, but we were wanting to do it anyway. Over the last 5 years we've built up a really good group of people who want to buy local veg. And we decided that this was the best place to do it.
There used to be a large mound here, which was actually a...
Yeah, I'd already forgotten.
Yeah, which was, I can use this to gesture with.
Yeah, where did it go from?
So it kind of went, it was about, started right here.
So almost against the chicken wire fence.
And then it, you know, it was about this tall, and then it kind of went, you know, down to pretty much where the goose fence is. But just a bit further, and we used this as the chicken kind of grazing. So they would come out of the fence of their yard, they would come in and graze, and they would kind of come up onto this, what was essentially just a pile of rubble that had kind of grown with weeds and grass and things, and James had planted some willow and stuff. So we did use it for something, but considering it's a kind of prime location next to our market garden, and we were really feeling like we needed to expand and grow a little bit more. So a great local guy with a digger came up and flattened it, and it's unbelievable how much it changes the space when you start to interact with a new area differently, because now we were hardly ever down here in this area, and now, well, because we've got a lot to do, we are down here a lot. But also it created this new join so we have a lot more access now to this woodland, where we're hoping we've got some other plans for in there. So that's why we've kind of marked out a road here. We'll be putting a new gate from the polytunnel to the chicken run. So this will all be inside the market garden. So the chickens really will be in the market garden, which will be really nice. So that yard will become even more of a compost pile. We're going to have another compost bay, and this will really be a great access to get the compost and be pretty much instantly in the garden as soon as we walk out of the run. And so I don't know if you can make out here, but there's some kind of string, so we've been plotting out where the beds can fit, how to make big enough roads for trailers to turn, and make sure that everything can fit, because that's something that we've learned from trial and error is, you know, we'll put something somewhere and realise we can't access the other thing because we put that thing in the way, or not big enough space to turn and things. So we put quite a lot of effort into making sure everything's in the right place here. We've got the beds that James was pointing out earlier, where we've got the sprouts, and these, you know, we've doubled the length of these beds. We've decided to keep these willow in here and extend this into another tree row, another forest garden tree row. The main difference with this one will be we will not be planting mint next to the beds, and then we'll have a road here, so the BCS can come down here and go out of the market garden this way, or round to the bottom to the right as well. It can turn to the right here, and that will be a way of either accessing through we can access through here, hopefully somewhere we can get to our compost bays even easier. Or there will be a gate down here where we can access what we call Smiddy Woods, because there's a ruined blacksmith. We're hoping to bring some more animals into this area.
All right, so show us where the beds are going to be, Rosa.
Yeah, so if this is the road, this is the edge of the new beds here. The beds run down there and then along this way. This is the market garden new boundary here. And then these beds are all 30 meters as well, so double length beds as well.
100 feet.
And yes, so they go pretty much all the way to that wall. And there's 8 of them here. 16 extra beds, as we've had beds of 15 meters, so we see it as 16, but it's 8 double length beds. So it's really increasing our capacity to grow. And the other thing is that it's meaning that we can, we have a place to put our brassicas this year. It's quite tough to find new places to put brassicas because we grow so many of them. So this will be nice fresh ground to do that in.
The soil here is pretty poor. It's also got a whole lot of rubbish in it from somebody that lived here before us.
Shirley and Andy did quite a lot to pull out all of that rubbish and a lot of the rocks. But we know that they're going to get churned up again because we're going to have to bring tractor in.
Yeah, we're going to have to do something to turn the soil over. So hence why we've got the geese, a slow start with biology to start eating down that grass to make it easier for us to come in, probably with the rotary plough and attach to the VCS and dig it up and make some beds. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us.
Yay! But I think we're both really excited to see this part of the garden expand. I think it will just obviously add to the market garden, but like the feel of this whole area, the fact that the chicken yard will become even more integrated and we'll be looking down at more market garden beds and we'll have new places to sit and
drink more beer.
And drink more beer.
Great. Thanks, Rosa, for that little tour about the new plot. So yeah, we'll be having to crack on with this job quite soon because the brassicas that are going here, which is mostly just cabbages and broccoli, have germinated in the polytunnel, which is where I'll take you to now. So we have got to get the beds ready quite soon so that we can get these baby brassicas out. The polytunnel is pretty empty at the moment. As you might recall, we had the hens in here over winter and it's been a great success. They have added a huge amount of fertility. It looks rather dry. Of course, it doesn't get any natural rain, but we've been watering it now and again. So we brought the hens in here in around November and they had a couple of months over winter. It was really great for the hens. They were much happier being in the drier conditions away from the rain and the snow that they usually get in the mud. So they were very happy, and once the worst of the weather was over, we put them back in the straw yard. We had been bringing in large amounts of wood chip as a carbon bedding for them to absorb all the high nitrogen manure. And once the hens were out, we watered that down and covered it with a black tarp. And a couple of days ago I came in and formed the beds in here, and we'll be planting early beetroot, salads, and then throughout the season we'll have courgette, French beans and herbs like basil and coriander in here. We're doing tomatoes again this year, but they're going to be up in the small polytunnel that we have that we very rarely use. This winter we decided we'd put the goats in that polytunnel. And that was great. They loved it in there too, and have of course left a huge amount of high nitrogen bedding behind, so we're going to have to muck that out quite soon. A month or so ago Rosa and I moved the goats out and any hay bales and straw that was left, put the goats back in their normal byre, which is where they are now. But we've got that job ahead of us, is mucking out the small polytunnel before we can plant the tomatoes. I'll show you the tomatoes. You know what? I'll have to ask Rosa, but there's a whole bunch of different varieties, which I can't really remember off the top of my head, but that's what they are. Some of them we grew last year and some of them are new to us. Here are the Brassicas. So a whole different blend of cabbages, red and green. These are onions. So we usually have grown onions from sets, but this year we're growing them from seed. Beetroot, Monch 2, sugar snap, peas, so they'll be going out very soon. I've got to build a trellis for them. Some courgette just popping up, and cucumber. Before we potted up the tomatoes, they were in this kind of cold frame which my mum built for us. So we've got a couple of heat mats in there, electric heat mats, and a few different shelves. This is an old shelving unit that we just covered with polythene, and that's where we had the tomatoes. We've got some peppers in there, basil, anything that we need to try and get off to an earlier start. We put in there. We've got this is a hardy kiwi that we're growing, which we got as a cutting last year. So I've just put that in there today. So yeah, so all in all the tunnel is kind of empty but fulfilling a job, and it won't be long before these beds get sown or transplanted into. So yeah, that's an update really for you guys on the market garden. I've got to get on with getting a plot ready for planting tatties, so I'm going to get the BCS and bring that up. We've got a few raspberry canes to dig out that are merging into the plots, and we're going to plant those raspberries in the forest garden. Rose is going to be working on this bed here.